Porto is one of Portugal's most beautiful cities. So why are the locals moving out? On this week's programme, I take what might well be the worst tour in the world. At least that's what the organisers claim. Thrills, spills and mountain adventures. Find out where in this month's Global Guide with Michelle. We meet the man locked in a cycle of repair, trying to keep thousands of London bikes on the road. And Krista tunes up with Copenhagen's internet sensation. But has she got what it takes to be in the band?
I don't have it, do I?
No.
I can't join your band, can I?
One of the chosen ones.
Hello, welcome to the travel show. Now this week we're in Portugal's second city, Porto. And this place is an atmospheric jumble of medieval bell towers and Baroque buildings. And of course, it's well renowned for the wine that carries its name. But we're not here on a booze cruise. Porto, like the rest of the country, has been badly hit by the financial crisis. Though for some, it's not all bad news. I'm here to see how some locals are making the most of a bad situation. The boarded doors and abandoned houses tell a tale of a suffering city. In fact, the population of Porto has shrunk by 1/5 since the early 2000s, and according to some estimates, 30% of the buildings in the old town are abandoned. So, what effect has the financial crisis had on you?
It was work. I can't find work in my area. I used to be an artist.
I think when I finish college, I don't know if I'm going to find a job.
Have you thought of leaving the country?
Of course, because here it's tough to find a job.
And how does that make you feel, knowing that you might have to leave your country in order to survive?
Kind of sad.
When you take a look around, it's clear to see how hard the recession has hit here. You see boarded up houses, closed shops and empty streets, and that's when you realise that despite all its beauty, this is a city in trouble.
We could not go into the renovation of buildings itself because it was too expensive, and most of them were in any case privately owned. Many young people have looked for jobs outside, and it's a problem because it's really our blood which is going abroad.
But despite the downturn, one thing has risen steadily over the years: tourism. It's up 15% since last year, and for many of the city's inhabitants, it's a welcome lifeline. Take Gui and Pedro, for example. Guessing that you don't like this. Unable to find work, these two Porto-born and bred architects set up as tour guides in their home city. But trust me, this is no ordinary tour. They're called the worst tours. They're trying to show the real Porto, warts and all. So, give me an overview of what this tour is all about.
I guess we started when we got the notion that the majority of the visitors to Porto stayed in a very narrow area. And so we decided to start making tours around it.
So you saw a gap in the market?
Exactly.
Gui and Pedro take me on a real mix of locations, from military sites to shopping centres, all the time giving me commentary on everything from local politics to the Portuguese economy. The only rule seems to be that if a location's a tourist hotspot, the worst tour don't go there. And in not shying away from Porto's faults, their approach is controversial. There's a tour called The Worst Tour, which claims that it will take you around Porto and show you the real Porto. What do you think about that tour?
Porto is this, is the ancient, is the modernity, is the people, it's our passion, you know, it's our gastronomy, and we should concentrate in this kind of people that, you know, that are making something for our destination and keeping the Porto in the international, you know, in the international map.
Are you worried though that this might give a bad impression?
We don't try to show the worst of the city. That's just a joke. But one of the things we usually show is the insides of the blocks outside of this area. So the backyards, the gardens, everything like that. And we try to pass on the image that Porto always has something behind the doors, you know, behind the walls, behind the city streets and behind the houses.
Now, at the end of the tour, you may not have seen the pretty side of the city, but then that's not really the point. Yeah, that was very, very interesting, and it's certainly not your bog standard run-of-the-mill tour. Those guys were passionate and they were provocative, and one thing that I really liked was the fact that you could argue with them if you didn't agree with any of their points. In fact, they encouraged you to get into a discussion with them, and I think that added to the richness of the whole tour. It's like a tale of two cities here in Porto. There's the one with the charming riverfront and buildings that wouldn't look out of place in a fairy tale. And then there's the other one with the recession and the everyday struggles to keep the city functional. As a tourist, it's your call whether you see both sides, but there is one place where they meet. The pride and love that the locals have for their city is obvious, and no one who comes here should leave without experiencing that. And what are your hopes for the future in Porto?
In one word, happiness. I want the citizens to feel happy and proud about the city. We don't want to have a city which looks like any other city.
And if you're thinking of heading to Portugal, here's some destination inspiration and also some important things to think about before you go. If you're a sun worshipper, July and August could be a good option. But for those keen on getting active, it might be that those 30-degree average temperatures are a bit too hot to handle. There's way more than just beaches and bars here, so try May or October to make the most of what the country has to offer. Portugal's stunning scenery is perfect for the outdoorsy explorer. Thrill seekers can hire mountain bikes in the Algarve, while those hoping to relax can kayak along the Mondego River. You'll be at one with nature in no time. But what about when the sun goes down? Well, if Portugal's famous laid-back vibe has you expecting an early night, then think again, my friend. Portugal is becoming almost as famous for its nightlife as it is for its fabulous food and drink. And if you really want to let your hair down, Portugal's calendar is packed with festivals. All-night revelries like Porto's Festa do São João will have you dancing and feasting the night away. Just take a look online at what's happening before you go. Next up, it's time for this week's travel update. From the last 7 days, we're talking ancient mammoths in Russia and Michelangelo's works illuminated in lights in Rome. But first to Hawaii, and a slow-moving river of molten lava from an erupting volcano is creeping closer and closer towards the residential and commercial areas of Pahoa. Authorities have suggested locals and business owners move away for their own safety, but there are no mandatory evacuation requests yet. To Europe now, and if you're in Rome this weekend, you can head to the Sistine Chapel to view Michelangelo's famous frescoes, which have been covered up due to damage caused by the breath and sweat of more than 6 million annual visitors. Now the 16th century works will be lit with new high-tech LED lighting and protected by a new air conditioning system. From one lighting spectacular to another, this time Thailand, where the lights from thousands of lanterns dotted the night sky this week for the merit-making ceremony. You can catch the festivals every year when attendees launch the hot air lanterns in a bid to cast away their troubles. And finally, a 39,000-year-old baby mammoth named Yuka has been put on display in central Moscow. Weighing 5 tons and at a height of 3 meters, scientists say that Yuka is the best ever preserved prehistoric mammoth. Next up, it's Citizens, where we meet the people who make our global cities tick. This week, we're taking a closer look at two-wheel tourism in London. The city has a hugely popular cycle scheme, and we meet the man tasked with keeping all those bikes on the road.
Cycling is such a great way of getting around. It keeps you fit, keeps you healthy. I cycle to work every single day, rain or shine. I'm Jeremy Wormington and I'm the Operations Director here at the Barclays Cycle Hire Scheme. So what happens here at the workshop at Penton Street is purely the services. So every 6 months, bikes will come back in and we will give them a once-over to make sure that they are both safe and in the best possible condition for users. So a bike will come in through the workshop, it'll come into the stands here where the guys will carry out an assessment. A mechanic then will pick up a bike, put it on their stand and carry out those necessary repairs and also the full service on a bike.
Well, this one's coming for a headset, front brakes and a hub at the back needs servicing. These are all common faults, it's a run-of-the-mill, you know, it's what we do every day.
We have 2 types of damage really. One is just normal wear and tear that we'll see through natural usage of the bikes. Then the other side of it is just damage through accidents and a small amount of vandalism, but we don't really get very much. So we're now in the control room, and it's in here that where we manage the complete redistribution of the bikes across the scheme. Guys in here are controlling around 25 vehicles, which are out there looking at the redistribution of all those bikes. So if we didn't do the redistribution, then we would just find either people will get very frustrated with the scheme, or they just leave bikes and abandon them. It certainly is a lively job. No 2 days are alike. So we're doing our best to encourage people to use the bike, and that's what it's all about, is getting people out on bikes.
Coming up on the travel show, Michelle's revving up for a road adventure in Global Guide, and Krista's in Copenhagen with a boy band who've become an internet sensation thanks to a whole lot of bottle. So don't go away. The Travel Show, your essential guide wherever you're heading.
Hello, I'm Michelle Yana-Chan, your global guide with top tips on the world's best events in the coming month. From the high mountains of British Columbia to commemorating the fall of the Berlin Wall. But first, in the UK, the London to Brighton Veteran Car Run happens on the 2nd of November, starting in Hyde Park. This 60-mile journey is about seriously old autos built before 1905. Astonishingly, 500 cars take part, revving their engines from 7 a.m. before travelling down to Brighton on the south coast. The event marks a change in the law at the end of the 19th century, increasing the speed limit from 4 miles per hour to 14 miles per hour. Drivers of that time also had to have a man walking ahead of their car carrying a red flag. There'll be a different kind of pace in Iceland at the Airwaves Festival from the 5th of November through till the 9th. Perhaps the coolest music festival out there, which showcases new music from Iceland and beyond. This year including the Flaming Lips, the Knife and even the Iceland Symphony Orchestra. It happens in downtown Reykjavik with hundreds of performances across the city in bookstores, chapels and cafes. Take flight to Canada, where the Fraser Valley Bald Eagle Festival takes place on the 15th and 16th of November in Harrison Mills, British Columbia. It's a spectacular sight. Thousands of birds come here, drawn by the millions of spawning salmon that travel up the Fraser River. The best viewing is from a boat on the river, but there are some good land-based spots too, including Eagle Point and Pretty Estates. There's art on show in Turkey at Contemporary Istanbul. Opening on the 13th of November, there'll be a strong representation of local and regional artists from the Middle East, North Africa and Iran. Look out for the 90-minute show, a curated exhibition space that'll change every hour and a half. The New Horizons section will focus on China's art scene, and the plug-in new media section will look at digital art, from the sound and light installations to robotic design. And from video art to film, from the 20th of November in the UK, the Kendal Mountain Festival in the Lake District is a celebration of outdoor adventure. There'll be international screenings, filmmakers' talks, as well as climbers and adventurers on the podium. The footage is stunning. You'll be scratching your head how they captured that moment. And if you missed that moment in 1989, Germany will be marking 25 years since the fall of the Berlin Wall. On the 9th of November, there'll be a sensational art installation, thousands of illuminated white balloons along 12 kilometres of the former course of the wall, as well as guided tours, performances and exhibitions across the city. And back here in the UK, the art installation Blood-Swept Lands and Seas of Red at the Tower of London has captured the imagination of the city, a poignant commemoration of World War I. Over the summer, the tower's moat has been filling up with red ceramic poppies, each one representing a soldier from the UK and the then British Empire killed in the war. The last day of the exhibition is the 11th of November, Armistice Day, when the exhibition will be at its most dramatic, with 888,246 poppies at the site. That's my global guide this month. Let me know what's happening in the place where you live or where you love. We're on email and across social media. Until next time, happy travelling.
Finally this week, we're off to Denmark's capital, Copenhagen. It's known for its relaxed atmosphere and green credentials, but that's not all it's got going for it. It's also home to a boy band with a difference.
In late August each year, Copenhagen gets ready for a good laugh as the Zulu Comedy Festival kicks off across the Danish capital. This year, over 200 comedy shows took place in 32 different venues, attracting audiences from across Denmark.
In the midst of all of these comedians is a rather unique musical act, one that uses, well, fairly unusual instruments.
These are the Bottle Boys, a group of Copenhagen locals who have mastered the art of blowing into beer bottles with rather remarkable musical results. In 2007, the band began posting YouTube videos showing their cover versions of songs like Michael Jackson's Billie Jean and Poker Face by Lady Gaga. And they've since become a hit, garnering millions of views and building a fan base across the world. I caught up with the boys at their studio in Copenhagen, where they were busily rehearsing for their big Zulu festival performance.
So how did all of this begin?
Well, actually it started at a party. Someone had been drinking their beer and someone had a new one, so we just started to blow the bottles. We just took it out and made some arrangements and came down to the party after 1 hour, and then we played a song and people was just like, what? And we took it to the streets. We were busking for many years and it took a long time to develop. But now we're here. And we started to get some gigs out of it. And people saw it on the streets and we were invited to Hong Kong. And it just took off.
The Bottle Boys may be an internet sensation, but this is far from just a bunch of blokes with some beer bottles. Each of the band members studied musicology at university, and even preparing the instruments with different volumes of water is an exact science.
When you tune the high notes, it's just it's 2 drops and then it's 1 semitone up. So if you accidentally just blow out some of the water, it's a complete different tone.
Så nu får I the dunk of destruction.
Just a couple of hours later, the Bottle Boys take to the stage.
We thought it would be perfect for this program because they don't take themselves too seriously about what they're doing. They can see that it's kind of off and different and funny, so it fit perfectly. And we kind of want to change people, what they think about comedy. Then it's not always just a guy with a mic telling jokes, basically. It can be many other things.
Now, all of this bottle blowing might look like fun, but I can assure you it isn't that easy.
There you blow it like this. Yeah, you want to try?
Yes.
It's much more difficult than it seems.
Okay, wow, okay, this is really heavy.
Yeah.
So?
Yeah. Okay, I can assist you. Adjust the angle. No.
I don't have it, do I?
No.
I can't join your band, can I?
You're not one of the chosen ones.
So I might not give up my day job, but luckily I'm not really needed. These guys are continuing to work hard, creating new sounds with their bottles and playing songs as they've never been heard before.
So that's it for this week, but here's what we got in store for you next week. It's a China special. Rajan's taking a trip through this endlessly fascinating country where he'll be checking out giant buildings, a giant terracotta army, and of course, giant pandas. Catch that if you can, and don't forget you can keep in touch with us by following our social media feeds. You know how it works, all the details are on your screens right now, and if there's anything you've missed, make sure you check out our website. So see you next week, but until then, from me, Adia Depitan, and all the travel show team here in Portugal, it's adeus, goodbye.